Hey, Pastor, how you doing? Oh, he can't hear me.
I can hear you. I'm not on the Zoom screen, so it took me a little while to get to the mute button.
Eric's here with me too, but I'm the only one on my computer, so
Okay.
no. Sorry, it took us a minute. We had to delete the app and reinstall it. I don't know. Do you watch the show at your house, Pastor?
Yeah, I watch it on my phone
Oh,
usually.
yeah. Do you have an Apple phone?
Yep.
Do you ever have a problem with, oh, where'd you go? Hang on, I lost you. Do you ever have a problem with the app not starting and then you have to like reload the app?
Every once in a while with multiple apps, usually it changes
Uh,
from time to time where I open one and it just won't open.
yeah.
But if I close it and open again, it works.
Yeah, I've had to do it. I've never had it happen to any app other than the Chosen. And I've had to do it a lot lately since, I don't know, almost every single time actually. But yeah,
Okay.
it's okay. I mean, we're up and running now and I've seen this one like 3 times. So
Yeah.
send you the link, babe. Okay, hang on.
I'm gonna be right back. I gotta go print off a Bible class.
No worries. I got to send Eric the link. So
Just hold out. Okay, you can set that right in here.
So this one starts out. Oh, sorry.
Okay, can everyone still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I believe my copy is printed, so I'll be right back with that. And we will get started. Welcome. Right. So, good evening, everyone, those present here on Zoom and the one who is present here at church in person. We are glad you are all here. To start out with, I want to say this is going to be the last one until after Easter. Next week, I have Missionaries Conference down in Anchorage, so I will be gone on that Wednesday night, and then the next Wednesday is the beginning of Lent. It'll actually be Ash Wednesday on the 14th of February. So we won't be having it during those times. We'll be having it once Easter has wrapped up, then we will get back into doing this. So that will be the beginning of April, I believe. Is that April? It'll be April 3rd, because April 1st is a Monday. So that will be our plan moving forward. So we will watch after this, we will be watching episode 6 of season 3, as well as this weekend, we're going to try and go and see The Chosen season 4 in theaters over at the movie theater here in town. So we're going to get some tickets for that and watch the first, I think it's the first 4 episodes. And then it's the next 2,
No, it's the first 3 episodes.
first
plus
3 episodes, and then it'll be
Yep.
the next 2 episodes, 3 episodes, and then 2. Is that what they're doing? I don't remember how they're breaking it up.
I thought it was 3 and 3, but you're right. I think there are 8 episodes, so I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
usually they're doing 8, so I'm gonna assume that it's 3, 3, 2 is what it's most likely gonna be. So we'll at least see the first 3 episodes. We won't talk about them for a while yet, because we're taking a break and we have 3 more episodes to get through after this for season 3 to wrap up. So by that time, season 4 should be all wrapped up and we'll be able to watch them all right in a row. And by then they'll be starting on season 5. So that's all exciting stuff that we have for us to look forward to.
And I think on one of Dallas Jenkins, like, because if on the app you can watch the roundtable discussions and stuff with the cast members and everything. But I think he said that they're going to try and do a total of 7 seasons.
Yep, I remember that it was that way from the beginning when they started creating this series. That's what the plan was to do 7 seasons. And I believe, I remember, next season's supposed to be officially Passion. So season 5 is what I'm talking about. I believe it's supposed to be the Passion, and then season 6 and 7, I think, are supposed to be focused only on the disciples reaching out to the world.
Do you know if they're going to focus on Pentecost too, though? Like the 40 days after he's.
Yep. I think that's going to be part of season 6.
Gotcha.
I think probably what it's going to maybe end up being, I don't know much. This is how I would think of doing it. I'd have Pentecost be at the middle of season 6. And the middle of season 6, and then have the latter half of season 6 all be the early church, ending with Saul going out to start persecuting Christians. That's just how I would end it, and then it would then you would have all of season 7 to focus on Paul and going on some of his missionary journeys. That's just my thoughts on it. I don't know what the plan actually is going to end up being. They might end season 5 with Pentecost. Who knows how he's going to break out the whole Holy Week. Because there's really only 2 days that are really important in the early Holy Week, and that's Thursday and Friday, and then nothing until Sunday. So you got 3 days with lots of stuff happening, yes, but not a whole lot of time frame to really build on.
It would be interesting if they're able to spend some of that downtime, I guess, if you want to, like, while they're waiting for Easter Sunday, right? To be able to focus on the theology behind some of it. But of course, since this is supposed to be like real time, as if it's being played out, that would be different. But
yeah, and I don't know how much they're going to spend on actual theology, because they are doing something that is just to be a representative of the Bible and not teach theology, because
right.
otherwise they run into a lot of issues.
Well, I just meant the stuff that we all agree on, like, well, yeah, you're right. I guess it would be.
There's lots of issues with that too,
Yeah,
because I mean, Jonathan Rumi, he is a Catholic.
Yeah, that's true.
Then we have Dallas Jenkins is a evangelical. Then we have the guy who plays Peter, Isaac Zakar, or Zakar Isaac,
he's
whichever one it
Jewish.
is. He is Jewish, and
Yep.
he might not be back for the rest of the series, depending on the war in Palestine,
Oh, wow.
because he is under the age of 40, and the Israel army needs men, so he
Wow.
has been called up for that.
Wow, was that an article or something? Where'd you find out about that?
Nope, I was scrolling through YouTube and I saw something about how he might not be coming back to The Chosen. I was like, why not? And I listened in. I was like, oh, yeah, he's under the age of 40.
Right.
Jewish law says as long as you're under the age of 40, if we need to call you up, you will be one of our military men. So, I mean, his tour could end up being shorter, because they may end up sending him back so that he can continue this work as playing Peter in this role.
So does he live in Israel then? The one that plays Simon Peter?
It doesn't matter. He's under Jewish law as an Israeli person.
Even so, I just didn't know. Is he an American though? I mean, I
No.
didn't know that they could cross.
No,
that's
he is Israeli.
That's what I thought. Okay, yeah.
Yep. So his
Right, right.
nationality, he was born in Israel.
Gotcha.
So he falls under their laws, which
Right.
includes the law that until the age of 40, you can be called up at any time to serve in the military if they need people.
Yeah, the question was one of enforcement. I mean, if he's in a different country, how on earth could the Israeli government get him? But
Yeah,
if
nope,
he
it
still
was-
has an Israeli passport, that makes absolute sense at this point.
Yep. Yep. He is not an American citizen, and I don't think he really wants to, like, he loves his country. He loves his people. He is very devoted, and that's why he actually went back, is like, yeah, he probably could have tried to find ways out of it, but he went willingly. He didn't get dragged back in any way, from what it sounds like. And they're praying that everything works its way out and he can come back in time to be in the cast for season 5, because right now it doesn't. I mean, that's what they're hoping for. Clearly, they haven't started casting again for Peter, which at this point would be kind of strange, almost over halfway through, to switch out who's playing Peter. I mean, they're doing that they did that with some of the actors already, but yeah.
Maybe they'll find a doppelganger.
Maybe they'll find an exact look-alike of him, but who knows? Who knows? We just all have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, we live in interesting times where real world events are affecting a TV show.
Yep. Yes, it is. Real life events. It's just crazy to think about. But let's actually start talking about the 2 episodes we watched for today's season 3, episodes 4 and 5. The reason I had us watch those last minute is simply because not a whole lot really happens, biblically speaking, in episode 4. It's a lot of more setup for a lot of things. And one thing still hasn't actually, as we see in season 5 or in episode 5, hasn't actually been realized yet. We're starting to get hints of something coming up in the future here, but as of now, it hasn't actually happened yet. And so I'm not going to talk about what that is, but it'll be something we can talk about when it actually happens, and I'm sure it'll happen here in season 4. They've been setting it up quite clearly, and they just have to actually get it to happen. But let's start talking about episode 4 and episode 5. So I'm really going to break it up into the different stories that we are following along with at this point in this series, in this 2 episodes. So there is the story of Jairus, there's the story of Vanessa, and then there's the story of Simon and Eden. So the disciples have just gotten back. So we'll start with Simon and Eden and what they're going through. We're going to go through the whole story, even going into what happens in season 5. So this won't all be in chronological order for that purpose. So Simon gets back. Eden has rearranged the house slightly, put new things up, and Simon, like all good men, are completely oblivious to the changes made in the house because he's just tired. He's exhausted. He wants some food and wants to get some rest. Eden is upset about this, mostly because he did put a lot of work in.
I would say don't make him an excuse that he was tired. Guys aren't going to notice this stuff anyway.
Nope, but that he was, that's the excuse he was really using. It's like, oh, I am tired. I didn't even realize, like, I am not getting any of this. And she was hoping to spend some time with him, and she didn't make that clear to him. So he's like, okay, well, I'm going to take a nap. And just so you know, everybody's coming over a little bit later. Can you make some more bread? And she's a little upset about this, but doesn't say anything. And so their relationship starts to get a little more strained. And it's clear.
Well, their communication sucks.
Yes, and that does play a big part. She doesn't say to him, I would like to spend some time with you. I was hoping to spend some time with you now that you're back. No, she instead says, I was hoping, and then she stops and says, never mind. If she had said it, things might have turned out differently, because maybe she would have felt more comfortable telling him earlier what had happened to her while he was gone. And so they are really strained, and Simon has no idea what's going on, and he doesn't know what he's supposed to do. What is he supposed to say to make her feel better? Because he can tell something's wrong, but he doesn't know what it is. Andrew notices, and nobody knows what to do. And it's really stressing Simon out a lot. And so when Jesus comes back and they have a second meeting at his house, when he's hoping to spend some time alone with his wife to actually work through some of the stuff, he gets very mad at Jesus and leaves. And that's when he meets with Gaius, the Roman soldier who used to protect Matthew, and he talks with him a little bit, and they agree that they're going to work on the cistern so that so that Peter can get out of the house a little bit. And Gaius says, just say that she is right and you are sorry, and that should fix everything. That's not always the case. It's not always the case. Very often that is the case, and that will fix a lot of things, but not always. And when Simon tries it,
disagree.
I think that this is I think this is interesting though, because it shows that like if husband and wife spend too much time apart, then you're naturally gonna have like rockiness. You're not gonna know how to talk. You kind of have to relearn how to talk to each other again.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. And that's why I would say, like, in some cases, just saying, I'm sorry, you are right, isn't going to help the situation because it's because of something that happened while he was gone. They need to actually talk about it, work through it together, not just sweep it under the rug, saying, I'm sorry, you were right, and move on. So it's not always going to work. It's not some magic formula. It works a lot of the time, but not all of the time.
Well, and it's kind of unfair. I felt like her character was blaming him for not being there, which, yeah, he wasn't there, but it's not, I mean, she's encouraging him to follow Jesus. So,
Yep.
you know,
Yep. And that's, and at the end,
unfortunate, but it's not his fault.
yeah, and in the end, that's what she explains to him. So in the end, after Jesus comes back again from being gone for a little bit and does all these miracles and speaks with John's disciples, where John is wondering whether or not Jesus is the one they're actually waiting for, and Jesus says, "Yes, I am. Look at all the signs I have performed. Tell John that." And then he talks about how he basically hinting at the fact that he is the Messiah, but never actually saying it. And when he is pushed, Jairus steps in and sort of moves the people along, so that way Jesus doesn't get into a whole lot of trouble and possibly end his ministry early for people who want to, because of the people who want to kill him. But Peter goes home and is meeting with his wife, Eden, and is telling her all about this. And finally, she just tells him what happened and says that she had a miscarriage. That when he had left, sometime after that, she found out she was pregnant. And shortly thereafter, she finds out that she's having a miscarriage and loses the baby. Simon, like any good man, tries to find out what the problem was, what happened. And she just says, fine. There's not always a reason for it. Sometimes it just happens. And that's where they get into the discussion of why she didn't tell him sooner. Because she knew that if she told him sooner, he would blame Jesus, which it's not Jesus' fault. It's something that just happened. And she is also having that same struggle of trying not to blame Jesus for this, because if Jesus hadn't sent Peter away, he would have been there with her to deal with the situation together, and she wouldn't have been alone stewing on it for however long he was gone. This, of course, upsets Peter still and gets him mad at Jesus, but for a different reason. Why didn't Jesus know this was going to happen and help you? Why did he allow this to happen? And he's very upset about it, and rightly so. This is a sad thing to go through, to lose a child when it's an unexpected joy, for those parents who have been hoping to have a family, as we saw happens in episode 3.
But this is kind of interesting because this speaks to the argument that a lot of non-believers have. It's like, if God is so good, why does he let bad things happen to people? You know, that seems to be one of those critical things that they kind of turn to when they want to talk about not believing. Why would I believe in a God that let somebody die from cancer? Or why did God let this person get raped? I think it's a very interesting, like, inside I know it's like that's a very self-centered way of thinking, because it's like that implies that God works for us. That's not the way the relationship is. But to think that way, it's like, why did God let this happen? Well,
Yep.
we will never understand that. That's the thing. It's like, we may not be given to understand, but we have to believe that there is a reason.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, no, it is that is
Nice.
the argument from evil.
That's a good way of saying that. And it is nice to see that reason after whatever the bad thing is happens. It's nice when God does, I mean, God doesn't always reveal it, or at least doesn't reveal it for a really, really long time. But when he does, it is a really good feeling of, oh, this is why you did this, God.
Yep. Yep. And
I
ultimately,
I think my favorite thing to say, when people have that conversation around me, it's one of those, we don't know who else is being influenced by this event that God, is letting happen. I put air quotes for that, right? God might have allowed this cancer to occur for the nurse that comes in and treats the patient, to
Yep.
bring that person to faith. We don't know. I mean, and that's very egotistical to think we should be given to understand. Just know that those things happen and they fulfill some purpose that, as you pointed out, Emma, would be great to know. And sometimes you find out, but sometimes you don't. I think it's like there's that country song that says, sometimes the greatest gift is, God doesn't answer your prayer.
yep.
Maybe the answer to your prayer is no, and there's a reason for that.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And often we don't actually ever find out the reason that it is good until we are in the next life and find out the reason I did that and allowed that evil to happen to you was so that you would end up here.
Can I ask a quick question about in this episode? Why, because Jesus is in his, as human form. I mean, I know he's able to know what's going on in somebody's life, but is there for Simon to be angry with Jesus because he didn't prevent it or something like that? I mean, obviously that's misplaced, but the idea is Jesus wasn't even there. I mean, I know that he can know everything that's going on at once, but obviously he has to like prioritize his, well, I would think like he knows that she probably had a miscarriage, but I think the whole lesson here is that Jesus wants, what's her name?
Eden.
Eden wants Eden to ask him, because I think that they hint at that at the end of one of the episodes. I can't remember where. He kind of says, why didn't you say anything? So
Yep. Yep, there are some times where he does say all you have to do is ask me and I will do those things for you. With Shula and Barnaby, he says that, why haven't you asked me? And she says, well, you have far more important things to worry about than something that I have dealt with for a long enough time that it's not an issue for me. I don't need my sight. I am perfectly fine without it. And he says, well, I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah,
and I
and
think he did that because he just showed his humility and he wanted to reward that humility, like,
mhm.
yeah.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. And that's kind of something we're also going to see in our discussion when we talk about the woman named Vanessa in this episode. But yeah. And we're going to later on see that Jesus actually may have had an idea of already what was going on, but he needed also Simon to be able to deal with it, because he's going to ask him to do a lot of really hard things in the future, and he needs to learn how to deal with that, to deal with the loss and that
That's
sort
a
of
good
thing.
point. Yeah, that kind of goes back to what he was saying. Yeah.
Yep. So let's now backtrack. Let's talk now. We've mentioned her a couple times. Let's talk about Vanessa, the woman who's been bleeding for the last 12 years of her life, to the point where she is disowned by her family. She's not allowed to go near anybody because anyone who touches her will be unclean for 7 days and they must go and wash in the sea. And so that is a big issue for her, especially because she can't get married because she is unclean and she has no male family to take care of her since her family has disowned her. So all she can do is hope that one day she will meet Jesus. That is her last hope. She has nothing left. She meets up with Eden and they try and help each other in ways, to deal with things. I believe it's ultimately Vanessa that leads her to just say, just tell your husband what's going on in your life, otherwise you're going to end up alone and suffering. And then she meets up with Nathaniel and goodness, I'm trying to think of who else was there.
You're talking about the two that found her in the desert?
Yeah, it's Nathaniel and
I don't remember. Was it Andrew? I don't know.
nope, it wasn't Andrew. I can't think of who it is off the top of my head. Another disciple. Yeah, I can't think of who it is. Might be the other Judas, not Iscariot. Might be his name. But they met with Vanessa and they agreed to take her to Jesus. But they don't know where he is. So they're like, okay, we'll at least take you into town and we'll try and find him. We don't know exactly where he is. So they get into town and that's where the whole Jesus is meeting up with all these people, and they are going now to the house of Jairus, and the woman sees him and she is held back saying, look, you can't get through the crowds. You're not going to be able to get there in time. He's heading off in another direction. We'll wait. Just wait. We have to go with them. Wait for us, and we will come and find you with Jesus at a later time. Please be patient. And she is like, I don't need to talk with him. I don't need to meet with him. All I need to do is touch just a small part of his clothes. And she reaches out and touches just the edge of his cloak. And that's when Jesus stops in the middle of where he's going and turns around and says that, and asks the question, who touched him? And the disciples are really confused considering there are lots of people around. So any one of them could have touched him. And he's like, no. Specifically, someone touched me and power left me. And that's when the woman admits that she touched him and that she had been unclean, or that she had been bleeding for 12 years and now it's stopped. And Jesus says it's because of her faith. It is her faith that has healed her, that she trusted in Jesus. And now we can get to Jairus. Jairus is the leader of the synagogue. He's a caretaker of the synagogue there in Capernaum. And he is frantically reading through different things because he read one of the rabbi's letters about Jesus, and he is filled with faith, but he is very conflicted about it because if he were to say what he believes, well, that would mean death to him, because what it is very much blasphemy. And so they are very concerned about not letting this information get out. But he's like, I can't help it. I need to know more. I need to read more. I need to understand more. I want to see it and believe it completely. I can't stop myself from believing it. And that's when his daughter gets sick because the well has been contaminated. And so she is sick and dying. And so he's looking for help. And finally, he sees no choice but to reach out to Jesus. And that's where Jesus is going when the woman who has been bleeding for 12 years touches him. And when he finally gets there, the people said, don't bother him anymore. Your daughter is dead. There's nothing that he can do. And he says, don't worry. And he goes inside, tells all the people who are mourning and wailing to stop. That child is only sleeping. And then he takes only James, John, and Peter and the parents into the room and kicks everybody else out.
Hey, Pastor, here's an interesting thought that just occurred to me.
Yep.
You know, we've been talking about how Peter's been has struggled, you know, the miscommunication between him and Eden about the miscarriage, and that, you know, that led to Peter leaving the house, right?
Yep.
Which subsequently led him to fixing the cistern, which had gotten this girl sick, which allowed Jesus to visit this family and therefore help the faith of the person who is questioning. You know, so it's one of those things, like I said, we never know, we probably don't always know why something happens, but
Yep.
in this, at least the way this is presented, right,
Yep.
you could draw a line about the sequence that obviously led things. You know, if Eden had spoken clearly ahead of time, which is, you know, what we were all talking about, that Peter wouldn't have left the house, wouldn't have worked on the cistern. There's just a lot of things.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to see that, I think, also play out later on with another thing that hasn't been fully realized even in the rest of season 3 yet. I think it's going to happen in season 4, that they're going to finally bring a certain story to light and bring that to completion. That's going to be, I think, a really good one to watch. But he eventually goes into the room with the parents and Peter, James, and John, and he tells the little girl to get up, and then she wakes up. And Jesus says, "Don't tell anyone about this. Go and feed her." Of course, a lot of people have heard multiple things. One, he was touched by a woman who's been bleeding for 12 years. That means that Jesus is unclean. Second, he has come in contact with a dead body. That means he is unclean. He needs to go and wash in the sea. That means all of the disciples need to go and wash in the sea. And Jesus says, fine, whatever. And he goes and does it. And they have a fun time in the ocean.
You know what? One of the things that I like about the fact when they put it up on screen, because of course, when you first read that in the Bible, my first thought was like, wow, these Jewish people are really picky about, you know, like it almost sounded like they thought that they were better than other people because they don't want to get dirty or whatever. But then when you think about the times that it took place in, that's how diseases get carried over. They didn't understand how bacteria and all that got transferred. So this is an effort to avoid getting sick. I would think.
And this wasn't
Rather than a
a
spiritual thing. It wasn't, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't even a man's idea. This was actually decreed by God. This is what he said you were to do. This ritual cleanliness, a lot of them, if you look at them, you realize, hey, that's preventing a lot of spread of disease. God has told the Israelites, hey, before you eat, you got to wash your hands. Hey, if you come in contact with a dead body, you got to wash your hands. Hey, if you come into contact with someone who has a disease, you need to wash your hands. All these ritual cleansing things, people are realizing, hey, that's scientifically advanced for a people that was founded long, long ago. These people were already doing the things we eventually came to do in hospitals. That was found long time afterwards. For a long time, doctors did not wash their hands before performing surgeries. They would just reach into your body with dirty hands, and then they would go to the next surgery. It was only later on that a guy said, hey, we should probably wash our hands so we're not spreading disease from one body to the next. And he did that, and mortality rates dropped in surgeries. So are there any questions about the episodes that we watched that we didn't talk about yet?
Nope.
All right, well then I'm going to send out the link for everyone online to get access to the worksheet. So we can get started. We've already spent a long period of time just discussing what happened in the episode. So we're going to go through rather quickly what is going on here in these lessons. I'm going to read them just to keep us moving. So we're going to look at the two accounts that really happened, the ones that really stood out. That is the stories of Jairus and the woman who's been bleeding for 12 years, as well as the conversation between John's disciples and Jesus. So let's start with Mark chapter 5, looking at verses 21 to verse 43. When Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. Then one of the synagogue leaders, named Jairus, came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. He pleaded earnestly with him, "My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live." So Jesus went with him. A large crowd followed and pressed around him, and a woman who was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. Yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, "If I just touch his clothes, I will be healed." Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see the people crowding against you," his disciples answered, "and yet can ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." While Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. "Your daughter is dead," they said. "Why bother the teacher anymore?" Overhearing what they said, Jesus told him, "Don't be afraid, just believe." He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the house of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion, with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, "Why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep." But they laughed at him. After he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. At this, they were completely astonished. He gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this and told them to give her something to eat. So those are the two accounts that we see happening in this episode, in these two episodes. But now, the one thing I want to point out that's different, where does Mark say Jesus came from? Yeah, he came across the lake, which isn't what matches up with the episode at all. But that's okay. It's lots of the things are in different places. Now, what was Jairus's plea to Jesus?
Save his daughter.
Yeah, he wants to heal his daughter. Now, what was the woman's thought when she saw Jesus? What was the woman thinking when she saw Jesus, the woman who'd been bleeding?
That she
She had faith that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
just the fringe of his garment.
Yeah, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Now, how did Jesus react when the woman touched him? Yeah, he went around asking who touched him. What else did he say?
The actor was a little dramatic about it.
Yep.
Well, power left him.
Yeah, and that I feel like is, you have some artistic license as to what does that exactly mean. He felt a little bit weaker, so he fell back maybe. But he also then turned to the woman after she told the truth. He said, "Daughter, your faith has made you well."
Well, and do you think that the reason why he mentioned that he felt the power leave him is showing what you commented about last week, that it's the Holy Spirit that's healing people?
Yep, exactly. That is, I think
But
that is
really
what
pointed
is
that
being
out.
stated here.
I think another thing to keep in mind with that, and that's a a great point about the the Holy Spirit being a part of that. But in a way, this is a reminder of the duality of Jesus. That as a human, he sensed something, something within him doing something, right? And
Yep.
as a human, that would make sense. The God part of him already would have known what was going on.
Yep. Yeah. And yeah, Renee. Oh, whenever I read that it always brings to mind Ben Kenobi when what's the planet that they destroy with the Death Star in the beginning of episode 4?
Alderaan.
Alderaan, yeah, where he sits down because there's a great disturbance in the Force due to all these deaths, and hearing all those cries because of it. It's kind of like how he reacts to that. That's kind of how that's how I read this part, is that feeling of great, like something has changed in the world. And that's kind of what I always picture. So yeah, it's that human side of Jesus.
So I guess the question then becomes, who is imitating who? Was Jesus imitating Obi-Wan? Because this was a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yep, that is an excellent question. But now after that happens, after that interaction with the woman, what do the people say to Jairus? Yeah, your daughter is dead. Don't bother Jesus anymore. Now, why did the people laugh when Jesus said that the girl was only asleep?
Because he had brought in like the professional wailers and everything, and you would think that before he called them, he would have assured that she was dead.
Yeah, yeah. These people are professionals. They are paid to come and to see dead bodies and to mourn and wail over them, to play the flutes, all these different things to mourn them. They
like-
know a dead body when they see it.
But it's so weird because it's like they're total strangers. Why would you? It just felt so fake to me.
Is it like the choir? Was that like the first church choir? That you had to be a tenor and a soprano and a bass to work in this wailing troupe.
Yep, yep. It's basically what it is it's an announcement really to the rest of the community that someone in this house has passed away. And so it's the beginning of the rituals of eventually removing the body, purifying the room, purifying the body, purifying all those who touched the body, and eventually burying the body. It's a whole ceremony of things in order to maintain ceremony cleanliness. And so this is an announcement to everyone in the community that there is a dead body in this house.
Well,
And
I'm
that-
glad you're clarifying that then for me, because like I said, the when I read it and I see that they won't let you touch somebody who's sick, and they won't let you touch, it's like to me it sounded like they felt like, oh, I don't want to stain myself with your illness. And so it sounded like it was a holier than thou type of attitude. And then this, of course, bringing in wailers that don't even know the kid. It's like, it felt to me like it was just for show.
It
you know?
is.
But like you said, if it's part of a ceremony, and like you said, to announce to everybody else that there has been a death here, then I guess I could see the purpose of that. And then of
Mhm.
course, the germs and everything, I understand the purpose of that too. I guess I just felt like the way it's portrayed sometimes in not just this show, but in other shows too,
Yep.
it's usually like the Sadducees and the Pharisees have this look of, ooh, I don't want to touch you, and it's not, there's no compassion there.
Yeah, and that's very true. And that was the issue. They started, so God did command them, hey, if there's a woman who it's that time of the month for her, or if she is bleeding from that area, you are not to touch her. You're not supposed to come near her. She's not allowed to touch you. And if she does, if she comes in contact with you, you will be unclean. You cannot come before God if you are unclean. So you have to do this ceremonially cleanliness. The woman has to do it at that time of the month. And after that, she's not allowed to come into the house for a period of time after that time of the month has come to an end, because she needs to purify herself before she can enter back in. After a woman gives birth, she can't go back into the house. She has to go into purification rituals. There are lots of purification rituals which mark a person as being unclean beforehand and clean afterwards. They just took it to a higher extreme, and they started getting really specific about things. Like, for instance, dead bodies. God says if you touch a dead body, you have to wash yourself. You have to become ceremonially clean again. They took that a step further. If you step on the grave of a dead person, you need to be ceremonially cleansed. That's why they didn't like going to Greece, because there they buried people on the side of the road, but they didn't mark the graves necessarily, or the graves weren't always obvious, and so you would constantly be walking on dead bodies. And so whenever you went to Greece, you always had to ceremonially cleanse yourself in order to go back to the temple.
Hey, Pastor, you saying that specifically reminded me of something I either read or I'm not even sure where I heard it. But was there a plot ever to bury dead bodies in front of the gates of Jerusalem to keep Jesus from walking in?
Yep,
Precisely for that ritualistic thinking.
Yep, exactly. The Muslims that live in Jerusalem, they have a cemetery that is on the west gate, I believe, or it might be the east. It's one of those two, because according to Messianic prophecy, that's the gate the Messiah is supposed to enter through from. However, if you step on a dead body, you can't enter into the city of Jerusalem. And so if he were to come through that door, well, then he would be ceremonially unclean and he's not allowed to enter, thereby preventing him from being able to enter, and thereby the Messiah can never come.
And thereby Islam rules all.
Yep, exactly. But that's not going to work because that prophecy has already been fulfilled. All right, and now so Jesus has healed this girl and has raised her from the dead. Why did Jesus give them strict orders not to speak about it?
His time had not come yet. It would be way too much. They would get too much attention about it.
Yeah,
Says
yeah,
that to them.
people would become too focused on this miracle than on what Jesus is saying and teaching the people. All right, are there any questions that we left out from Mark chapter 5? If not, then let's jump into John chapter 7 here, or Luke chapter 7. We're going to talk about John's disciples coming to ask Jesus some questions. All right, so from Luke chapter 7, verses 18 to 35. John's disciples told him about all these things. Calling two of them, he sent them to the Lord to ask, "Are you the one who is to come, or should we expect someone else?" When the men came to Jesus, they said, "John the Baptist sent us to ask you, are you the one who is to come, or should we expect someone else?" At that very time, Jesus cured many who had diseases, sicknesses, and evil spirits, and gave sight to many who were blind. So he replied to the messengers, "Go back and report to John what you have seen and heard. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is proclaimed to the poor. Blessed is anyone who does not stumble on account of me." After John's messengers left, Jesus began to speak to the crowd about John. What did you go into the wilderness to see? A reed swayed by the wind? If not, what did you go to see? A man dressed in fine clothes? No, those who wear expensive clothes and indulge in luxury are in palaces. But what did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is the one about whom it is written, I will send my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way before you. I tell you, those among those born of women, there is none greater than John. Yet the one who is least in the kingdom of God is greater than he. All the people, even the tax collectors, when they heard Jesus' words, acknowledged that God's way was right, because they had been baptized by John. But the Pharisees and the experts in the law rejected God's purpose for themselves, because they had not been baptized by John. Jesus went on to say, To what then can I compare the people of this generation? What are they like? They are like children sitting in the marketplace and calling out to each other. We played the pipe for you, and you did not dance. We sang a dirge, and you did not cry. For John the Baptist came neither eating bread nor drinking wine, and you say, He has a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and you say, He is a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. But wisdom is proved right by all her children. So what question did John have for Jesus?
Are you the one we've been waiting for?
Yeah, are you the one who is to come? Or should we expect someone else? And how does Jesus ultimately respond?
He recounts everything that he's done so far. The blind are seeing, the deaf can hear, and he tells the messengers to go back and tell John that honestly, I kind of felt like John's question was a little arrogant. He's like, dude, are you going to do this stuff or not? You know, and you
Yep.
know, get me out of jail too while you're at it. You know? And I think Jesus was kind of saying, I'm doing it.
Yep. And it could be that he was also asking it on behalf of his disciples to point them closer to who Jesus really was, but also get confirmation for himself that he wasn't off the mark with that. So now, what question does Jesus ask the people? What is the question that Jesus is asking the people?
I think the question he's putting to them is, you all went out to the wilderness for a reason. What was it? Why did you go and see this person named John? What did you hope to find? What was it
Yep.
that drew you out there?
Yep,
And
exactly.
that is where he was able to tie in to them the prophecies, the Old Testament that prophesied and spoke about who John was. And
Yep.
it was a way of saying, listen, he comes before me and he is here. He is among you. Therefore, in a way, he was hinting at that, you know.
Yep, exactly. And then Jesus continues to talk about John. And what does he say about John?
He points to the humility because he's pretty much living in abject poverty, relying
Yep.
on nature rather than, you know, there's no indulging done by John whatsoever. And then Jesus points to him saying that he is the greatest on all the earth.
Yeah.
And
It
in
says,
contrast, exactly, in contrast to Jesus and how he is seen as lowly, and even though he's the greatest, I guess.
yep.
Remember my
Yep, I
words.
get what you're talking about there. Yep. Yeah, exactly. He says, John, he really is a great prophet. Exactly what you have been told about and yet he lived in lowly means. People have said that he's demon possessed, and yet he is great. But there is one who is greater than he, the one who is the least among the kingdom of God. Now, in verse 29 and 30, we get this sort of aside where it talks about the two different groups. We have the tax collectors and all the other people who hear these words and agree because they had been baptized by John, whereas the Pharisees and the experts in the law rejected it because they had not been baptized by John. How do those two verses lead into what Jesus says in the remaining verses, in verses 31 to 35? How do those two verses lead into what Jesus says in verses 31 to 35?
I'm thinking the idea on this one is that since the first group of people were baptized, they have faith. The
Yeah.
other group not baptized, therefore they don't have faith and they can't believe.
Yeah, and what is how does that connect with Jesus' point that he is making in verses 31 to 35?
I think the idea is that the Pharisees think that they are believers. Because he's saying, I played the pipe for you, but you did not dance. Well, the idea is what the Pharisees are playing for Jesus is not what, like,
Yeah.
if they don't believe, they're not actually playing it for Jesus like they think they are.
Yeah, yeah, and you can also see sort of the opposite as well, that the children represented or that Jesus is talking about are those who do believe, and they're not the ones who are considered the righteous people. They're the ones considered the lowly, the sinners, the people who are rejected. And the Pharisees and teachers of the law, so they're the ones you expect to actually be the righteous ones, and so and the ones to actually believe. But when the children play the pipe, you don't dance. When we sing a dirge, you don't cry. You're not doing what we expect you to do. You are the ones who study God's word every day, and yet you are rejecting the one who is the fulfillment of God's word. And you are finding any excuse to reject it, saying, hey, he doesn't eat or drink. He's got a demon inside of him. Hey, he eats and drinks. Oh, he's a glutton and a drunkard. And he's a friend of sinners. We don't want to associate with him.
He's pointing out their hypocrisy, which
Yep.
we every day still hear. I mean, nothing has
Yep.
changed.
Nope, nothing has changed. All right, are there any questions about Luke chapter 7?
Nope.
All right, well, that is all that I have for this evening. We still were able to squeak in under an hour. No, thank you guys for participating. It's a great lesson today. We talked about a lot of different things. I'm glad we got to do that. And again, we won't meet again until the first week of April, which I believe is April 3rd. That should be the first Wednesday after Easter.
Sounds good. And then as far as Friday goes, do we all just kind of show up before the movie on, I mean,
I think so. I haven't seen
Okay.
any reason why that wouldn't be the case.
good.
So
Yeah, we'll just all meet up. I can't wait.
me neither.
Hide your
Right.
secret stashes of candy.
Well, that's what I was looking forward to. I have a big thing of popcorn. It's like, I can't wait. I've been craving movie theater popcorn for a long time.
I'm glad to see it's all about the show.
It is about the
No,
show
it's all about the food.
and the popcorn. Pastor, where'd you go?
I'm still
Bye.
here.
Okay.
I'm just looking at dates and times for the
No, it's at 6. It's at
showing. Yeah. I'm just looking to see if it had Okay, so yeah, it's only for individual tickets that you can buy them.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, because and that was the other thing I was worried about, the fact that there, it looks to be like there might only be one theater, because usually if they have multiple theaters, they show multiple start times, but they usually do stagger them, 15, 20
No, there
minutes.
are multiple show times.
Oh, there are? Oh, I thought
Yeah.
it was only 6 o'clock. Oh, okay.
I don't know. I'm seeing 11:30, 1:30, 3:30, 6 p.m. and 7:30 all on that Friday the 2nd.
So which showing are we going to then? I assumed 6 because I thought there was only one.
I'm not sure. I'm just on the Chosen website, and this is the site that they led me to for the Valley Cinema.
Oh, wow. Well, and
Which
I
is
think
the-
it's 3 hours too. I want to say, so I mean, 6 o'clock probably would be good only because, yeah.
Yeah, I think so too, just because I think that's just a
some
good
people-
enough time.
Yeah. Yeah, 6, like any earlier than 6, some people from work might not be able to meet at that time, so.
Yep. All right,
Perfect.
so I'm also looking at the schedule for all the other episodes,
Oh, yeah?
just so that we can also have this out for everybody to hear. So they're going to be showing episodes 1 through 3 from February 1st to February 14th. Then they'll be showing episodes 4 through 6 from February 15th to the 28th. And then episodes 7 and 8 will be shown from February 29th to March 10th.
Pastor, can you read that again? Episodes 1 through 3 on Friday, right?
Yeah, episodes 1 through 3 are being shown from February 1st until February 14th.
Okay,
Then
Eric
on the
says,
15th, they're going to start showing the episodes 4 through 6 until the 28th. And then
okay,
on the 29th of February until the 10th of March, they will be showing episodes 7 and 8 in theaters.
okay. Eric
And then
was
my
just,
guess is after that has all been done, then it will finally show up on the app.
right. We were just trying to clarify whether it was 2 episodes or 3, because whatever Eric has pulled up over here, it shows that they're only showing 2 episodes. So I just, excuse
Huh.
you.
It
Sorry,
says
my-
episodes 1 through 3, and then
Right.
episodes 4 through 6, and then episodes 7 and 8.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll just find out. Yeah, hopefully it'll be all 3 of them, yeah. Yeah, and go from there. Yeah, everybody has to get their own tickets. No, not yet. All right, awesome. Well, I'll see you guys on Friday.
Yep. See you on Friday.
Okay, bye, Pastor.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye, everybody.